One of the great problems that developed in Jewish life is that the word religious has come to be associated in people's minds exclusively with ritual observance. So that if two Jews are speaking about a third, a not uncommon occurrence in Jewish life, and the question is raised, is so-and-so religious, the answer yes or no will be based strictly on the person's level of ritual observance. He keeps Shabbat, he keeps kosher, he is religious. He doesn't, he's not. From which one could form the very odd impression that in Judaism, ethics are an extracurricular activity. Now, I say this as a Jew who's passionately committed to ritual observance, and I can give three reasons. One is, without ritual observance, we're not going to have a sense of the sacred, of the holy. Anybody who's ever experienced the meaningful Shabbat knows that the sense of sanctity derives from those rituals. I'll just give you one example. There's a custom among many Jews to light, let me backtrack for a second. According to Jewish law, the Sabbath is inaugurated with the lighting of 2 Shabbat candles. But many Jews practice the custom of lighting an additional candle for each child in the family. I grew up in a household where it was done. I was once speaking with Rabbi Abraham Twersky, who's a very prominent, wonderful psychiatrist. Twersky said he grew up in such a household, and he said it was very powerful to me to know that because I existed, there was more light in my parents' house every Friday night. In that sense, what's remarkable about spirituality is that it speaks the language of poetry. All parents tell their children that they love them, and they tell it to them often. And years later, many of those children end up in a therapist's office saying they never felt loved by their parents. But spirituality, halacha, customs, can convey these same ideas in that way. A second reason rituals are so important is for Jewish continuity. Over 3,000 years ago, Jews were freed from Egyptian slavery, an act that has influenced more movements of social justice in history than any other act recorded in any literature. And yet, if the Jews didn't commemorate that exodus from Egypt every year in a Seder, that narrative would continue to influence people, but we as a people would no longer exist. So continuity becomes very, very important. I'll give you another example. Ask most Americans, when was George Washington's birthday? And if they're over 45 or 50, they'll all know February 22nd, because we all grew up at a time when it was a day off from school and a celebration. Ask it of Americans under 20, and most won't know it, because there no longer is a celebration of Washington's birthday, of Lincoln's birthday. Everything's been condensed into President's Day, the third Monday and Friday, which is supposed to honor all presidents, but which in effect ends up honoring none. And that's what happens, because the spirituality is important. Imagine if a group of rabbis got together and said, you know how we could increase attendance in synagogue on Yom Kippur? Let's standardize the date. Let's make it the first Sunday in October every year. What would happen? Within years, there would be such a fall off in attendance, because part of the power of a ritual is that you have to adjust your life to the ritual. If the ritual can be dispensed with whenever it becomes inconvenient, so people understand it has no intrinsic significance. In Jewish life, which holidays have existed for 3,000 years, and it's remarkable, they've never arrived on time. You ever hear Jews talking the holidays are early this year, they're late this year, so you have to adjust to the ritual. Third, rituals can teach ethics. When I was growing up in Brooklyn in the 1950s, there was far less supervision, kashrut supervision, than there is today. Today, you can go into a supermarket anywhere in the United States and find hundreds, if not thousands, of products that have rabbinical supervision. When I was growing up, if you kept kosher, and I come from a religious family, so you were very punctilious about making sure all meat products were produced under rabbinical supervision, hashgacha. When it came to dairy products, we generally looked at the ingredients. My friend Dennis Prager, who grew up near me in Brooklyn, said when I was 6 years old, the first words I learned to read in English were pure vegetable shortening only. He said it's a good thing to learn at the age of 6 that you can't have every candy bar in the candy store. So having said that, it's clear, because of reasons of sanctity, because of reasons of Jewish continuity, because of reasons of ethics, that ritual teachings are very important. But nonetheless, at the heart of Judaism is the ethical. There's a story in the Talmud that's probably the best known narrative tale told in the Talmud. A non-Jew comes to Hillel and says, teach me the essence of Judaism while I'm standing on one foot. And Hillel answers, what's hateful unto you, don't do unto your neighbor. The rest is commentary, zeal, gemar. Now go and study. What people don't realize unless they're reading the story in the original, is that the story is actually even more radical than people think. What the non-Jew said to Hillel was not, as it's commonly reported, teach me the essence of Judaism while I'm standing on one foot. What he actually says was, Gaireni almanat, convert me to Judaism on condition that you can teach me Judaism's essence while I'm standing on one foot. So it's in response to a question from a would-be convert that Hillel says, the essence of Judaism is what's hateful unto you, don't do unto your neighbor. In other words, he puts ethics at the true center of Judaism and an acceptance of Judaism's ethical principles as the major criteria for determining whether to convert someone to Judaism. That's how we know that when I speak of the centrality of ethics, or when we speak of the centrality of ethics, it's not some newfangled idea to try and make a nice impression on Western civilization. It's the heart of Judaism. Anyone who insists that something else is the central teaching of Judaism would actually be falsifying Judaism, at least according to Hillel's understanding, and for that matter, according to Rabbi Akiva, who taught, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha zeh klal gadol b'Torah. Love your neighbor as yourself. This is the major principle of the Torah.